There's a nasty virus, so stay indoors. Now's the time to play the games that you couldn't before. In this unprecedented time of panic buying, bog roll and pasta, we should remember panic buying is not just for pandemics. Pandemic buying, you might call it, because they both start with pan. No, it happens a few times each year on our PCs. Yes, I'm talking about Steam sales. We have to buy everything that is 70% off, because who knows the next chance I'll get to grab flat out 3 for £2 rather than 7. And then those games clog up your library in a weird digital game stockpile of what you own. Kind of like if you could buy 10 bags of pasta from Asda online, but not have it all at once and fall out of your cupboard every time you open it, because all you do when you finish one bag is download the next into your pan. But also actually nothing whatsoever like that. However, now that we're all locked in our houses with nothing but the internet and all the other incredible creations of the last 20 years, we can finally go through that massive backlog of games we occasionally say we might go through, but instead we boot up Skyrim with a new mod that makes all dragons look like G.G. Allen or something. So that's what I'm gonna do for you. Go through all the shitty games I've accrued on Steam and never installed and tell you if they're any good. Why? Because I'm stuck at home too, you know. I need something to pass the time that isn't playing Skyrim. So first up in this little mini-series is a gem called Expeditions Conquistador. Clearly an attempt to create a franchise called Expeditions, which potentially may have worked because there is a sequel called Expeditions Viking that was released 3 years ago, so good for them. Conquistador, as I will now call it because easier, is currently $17.99 on Steam, and no, I cannot remember how much I bought it for or when I bought it. I really hope it was a lot less than that though. It's a turn-based RPG strategy kind of deal like XCOM, but you have a small band of followers that you can choose before you go on your expedition, because the clue's in the name. You can gather extra followers, have the ones you started with die/leave, and they all have their own unique personality traits such as racist, which is lovely. These traits change their morale based on your decisions and occasionally give you little xenophobic lines of text, all par for the course. As the name suggests, you are a band of conquistadors that head to the new world. You start off with the island of Hispaniola, which I googled, and is modern day Haiti/Dominican Republic. And in typical RPG fashion, have all your stuff impounded as you get there, so you've got to do a bunch of bits and bats for the shitty governor that include fighting rebels and whatnot before you can move on to mainland Mexico, the whole aim of your expedition. Only when you've done this island can you move to the Mexico campaign, I guess we'll call it. The most unique feature it has is camping. You wander around the map all day and time passes, you move faster on easier terrain like roads and slower on more difficult terrain like mountains, then you camp for the night. When you camp, you divvy up your tasks for you guys like hunting, standing guard, patrolling, healing wounds, etc, and move on afterwards. This can all get very sticky, tricky, however, as if you get a member injured, they cannot do their duties, so if, like me, you only picked one doctor and said doctor gets bitten by a venomous spider and dies, you are basically screwed. The game's obviously thought about this because it tries to compensate it by making your character also able to heal, and your character naturally can't die. But one doctor ain't enough, as wounds get worse if not treated, and you can only treat one person a night anyway. And you also need medicine to treat them, and I found my guys dying off as I couldn't treat them quickly enough or choose between food or medicine. Which one of these vital supplies do I need the most? I hear you all screaming, but that's the whole point, it's the challenge of the game, it's realism. Yeah, you're right, yeah. I mean, generally if I went on an expedition back in the oldie times with a bunch of conquistadors, chances are I'd die and most of the guys I'm with would die. But this is a video game, and it's safe to say the game wants to go for that bit of realism, but it falls into that classic trap of just copying off other games and trying to shoehorn its difficult real world stuff into it without creating a game that's engagingly difficult and realistic as opposed to just unfair and annoying. And I'm not saying that I have to go on and win the game or whatever, but have me fall down at the tutorial 3 times in a row on normal difficulty, and there's 2 more difficulties above normal as well, including like some crazy Iron Man mode, is a bit daft. Also, it's not consistent in its realism. You can get shot a good few times before dying in a battle, but so long as you win the battle, you'll find out afterwards generally that you've got no injuries at all. But other times you choose to retreat from the battle to avoid injuries and you come out pretty much dead. And that segues me nicely into the battles, which are the worst thing in Conquistador. Well, that and the graphics. No, the graphics are the worst thing actually, but they are so bad that I'm not even going to mention them. Like, as soon as you see them, you just try your very best to forget, just get around them. Easy way to describe them, it's a game that came out in 2013 and it looks like it came out in 2003. But who gives a flippy nipple about graphics? Back to the battles. They are copy-paste what folks tend to call the XCOM formula, with the hexes, but god they are slow and they're random number generating. I have a love-hate relationship with these kinds of games in that I love XCOM when I'm in the right zone and hate everything else that has ever tried to emulate it. I'm not an XCOM fanboy, I just don't really get why, but for some reason the XCOM style works with XCOM and is very exciting, but every other game that tries it, or the vast majority, just doesn't seem to hit the right tone. I don't know, it's just one of them things. I'm not sure why, there's just nothing fundamentally different with this and XCOM. It's just, I care about my soldier going to fight the evil aliens. I don't about Senor Rodriguez spending 10 seconds to run over to nondescript rebel and smack him with a cutlass. I think a huge part of it is adding features as the game progresses and making the battles tense. This doesn't. You just know exactly what you're doing straight away, you know, it's just a case of go over to that guy, smack him, you've got the Overwatch thing, or you can use your ranged on it. This doesn't make battles tense. They're very hard, but hard does not equal interesting or tense or exciting. Conquistador is an interesting idea. I like the idea of these tightly knit small groups of explorers, I like the historical setting. The game itself is a mishmash of other games though. It's XCOM, bit of Divinity, and there are RPG factors. They're all done acceptably, but not enough to keep you interested. These worlds should be rich with lore and adventure, and it feels more like a slog than anything. That and the graphics look like a small child with mixed up Play-Doh as the artistic director. Do not pay 18 quid for it though, that is criminal. I give it a get it in the sale and play during a pandemic score. For a bit.